Welcome to Unlearn, where we talk to industry leaders about unlearning how we go to market.
I'm Kelly Sarabin, and I run tech partner enablement and advocacy at HubSpot.
And I'm Asher Matthew, co-founder of Partnership Leaders.
The old ways of going to market are getting more expensive and less effective.
To thrive in an era of digital transformation, you have to go to market differently. Let's find out how. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Unlearn Podcast. Kelly, pop quiz. How many episodes have we done to date?
21?
26. See?
Oh man.
You were close.
I was off by order of magnitude. I didn't have the right data.
You were close. Well, today is a special episode, and it's because we have been working on the Unlearn podcast for about a year now, Kelly? Yeah. And the reason why we started the Unlearn podcast was to talk about the latest in go-to-market trends and learn from senior executives about the things that we should unlearn to prepare ourselves for the future. And now the future is partnerships, which is our favorite topic. And so we said, why don't we go and create a season of bringing chief partner officers on the podcast? And we reached out to the people that actually started the chief partner officer trend. And we were very lucky and fortunate to hear back from Nicole's team. And Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And partners are my favorite topic too.
Great. And it's been one heck of a week. That we've had a number of marketplace events in the market. There's tons of partner days going on. Partnership Leaders, my company, had a couple of events in the market where we had 100 or so people come. So there's lots of enthusiasm, but also lots of questions around, hey, how are senior partnership leaders thinking about their organizations and driving their organizations, right? Like think about their teams, but also driving their companies. And so we're super fortunate to have you here. But before we start, Nicole, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro about how you got to Microsoft, how you got to the role you're at? Tell us about your organization, and then we can start the convo.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. It's such a pleasure to be here today. I've really been looking forward to connecting with all of you. So I am celebrating my 17th year at Microsoft, which is amazing. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But prior to coming to Microsoft, I started my career in technology. I started my career in telecom. And I worked for a number of very large global telcos. And actually at one of those, I was running the media and entertainment vertical and found myself working on a deal with a couple of partners. And that was really my first taste, way back in the 90s, of what it meant to work with partners and the role that partners can play to really advance expectations and solutions and customer success. And after the deal ended, one of the partners actually offered me a job at his startup. And I wasn't really ready for a change at that point. And he came back to me about a year later, and now this was .com boom time. And frankly, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And that took me to go to Startup Land in the 2000s. And it was a company that was really at the intersection of technology and media. And, two things I'm super passionate about still. And as many people do in startups, I got to do a whole bunch of different jobs, although I wasn't allowed to touch the code.
You drew the line at engineering.
I have to have boundaries. But so I started in sales, and then I ran sales, and then we grew the business enough where we actually needed a customer care organization, and I built that, and I became the COO, and ultimately I became the CEO. And it was a really fun and wild ride. I learned a ton of things. I think it really fueled my entrepreneurial spirit. Eventually, we discovered that we were never really going to make the business model what we needed it to be successful. And then I moved to Northern California and became the CEO of a very different kind of startup. And I took over the reins from a founder, and this was actually the combination of technology and healthcare. And I was learning a ton. It was really interesting and challenging. Um, the culture and climate really weren't the best fit for me. And I had quite a few friends that had come to Microsoft, and a lot of people telling me you should come to Microsoft. And transparently, my first reaction was no. I just didn't think that Microsoft was going to be the best place for me because I'd started in a very large company. My first employer was AT&T at 300,000 employees at the time. And I had now just experienced these very two small, scrappy startups. And I was loving that sort of grit and scrappiness. And I didn't know what it would be like to go to a company like Microsoft. But I did actually meet with a hiring manager, and after about 10 minutes, I realized that I could have a growth mindset about this, even though I didn't know that language at the time. And so that brought me to Microsoft. I actually started in our enterprise field, and about a year later, I moved to Redmond and I joined our partner business. So 16 of my 17 years at the company are in some form of our partner business. I've had roles in Redmond, a couple tours of duty in Redmond. I worked in Asia for 2 years. I worked in the UK for 2 years running our consumer partner business. And I've been back here in Redmond since 2019. And I had just the most incredible opportunity to become Microsoft's Chief Partner Officer just over 18 months ago. So July 1st of 2022.
Incredible. And what so I guess I have thousands of questions for you, but what's top of mind for you? Let's start there. Let's start with what's top of mind for you, and then we can unpack a little bit.
Wow, gosh, I mean, the things that are always top of mind for me is how do I make the Microsoft partner ecosystem the very best in the world? And there's so many things that are inherent in that. Like, how do I make sure that Microsoft does our best job for our partners? How do I make sure that we are giving our partners all of the skills, the tools, the resources, the investments to do their best work? Because I really see our partners as an extension of Microsoft, and our partners in many of the cases are the ones actually touching our precious shared customers. And so it's really, really important that our partners feel connected to us and supported by us and feel like they're getting the best of the best from us. And of course, like we're, however many minutes in and I haven't said AI yet. So, AI is very,
You're doing really good. We're 10 minutes in. There's no AI. This is really good.
So, yeah, I mean, those are the big things for me.
Super. And in your, just so folks understand the different types of partners that are part of your org, do you want to expand a little bit about how your org is set up? Because we always get questions about, hey, how's the org set up? And what are the resources in there? And what do the people do? And we're always very curious about this because, as you know, Kelly and I spend a lot of time with partner leaders, and they ask us questions. And so we figured we would ask you.
Yeah. Org design is always a big topic for, I'm sure, every partner leader, and certainly for us at Microsoft. So we think about our partners in 4 partner types. So we categorize partners as ISVs, systems integrators, and that can be both the global systems integrators as well as local systems integrators. Our channel, which actually represents multiple partner types within it. Our distributor partners, our CSPs, our LSPs, our telcos, our hosters. So it's really a portfolio in and of itself. And then our device partners, which, as you know, is Microsoft's heritage. And then in my org, in order to support all of that partner capability and the work that we do with these partners globally, we have functional teams. We have leaders that are responsible for go-to-market programs and operations. We certainly have a leader that is dedicated full time to investments and incentives because it's so core to making sure that partners have the right motivation and inspiration to do the hard things we ask them to do.
Do you have any advice around dot lining? I think, to your point, Nicole, every partner leader struggles with this because no matter how you set up your org, um, unless you're an outlier and maybe you're like 100% channel driven, you're going to have to dot line something, right? Whether it's to the marketing, direct sales, the ops team, the analyst team. Any advice for people, because it's a perpetual struggle, right? Like how do you make this run efficiently and prevent silos, prevent turf wars, and ensure that everybody stays aligned, even though they might be reporting up to different leaders?
Yeah, wow, it's such a good question. I think there's a couple of things. One that I always think about when I think about the design and which functions should report where is I like to think about what's the center of gravity and how do you deliver that in the most efficient, effective, compliant, thoughtful, scalable way. And so a good example of that is our incentives team is centralized under me. And that helps us make sure that we're thinking holistically. It helps us make sure that we can measure all of the great things that we put in market and we do the right thing, both short term and long term for partners, for customers, and for Microsoft. But the other thing about dotted line is you got to just embrace it. Microsoft, we are a highly matrixed company, and the people that are most effective and probably also most happy in the company learn to embrace the matrix. And that you've got stakeholders, like finance is a huge stakeholder for our partner leaders, marketing, engineering, everybody's a stakeholder, frankly, in the partner business because it touches everything. But I revel in it. I love it. I'm a collaborator by nature. And so I think it helps me get things done most effectively and get the brain trust.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that mentality of the matrix within the company has to be built in. And sometimes it's the partnership leader has to advocate for that model to be implemented, because I think if it's not culturally embedded, you're going to be hitting the friction over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, so Nicole, so Microsoft has a dedicated sales team, right? And then do the ISVs team and the SI teams and device? I'm just trying to understand, like, does any part of the sales team also roll up to you because it's better organized that way, or do the sales function completely sit separately?
Well, I think the partner team is in sales too, but I
Okay,
think the question you're asking me, that was a little bit of a trick question. I think the question you're asking me is, does any of the customer sell to team report to me? Is that the question?
Yeah.
The answer is no. The way that we're organized is we have an amazing team of people that eat, sleep, and breathe selling to customers every single day. But, when I think about that stakeholder discussion we just had and the connective tissue you need to have, the relationship between the people that sell to customers and the partner team, we have to be joined at the hip and we have to do great joint planning together, because it's the combination of Microsoft sellers and Microsoft's partners that are going to get the job done for the customer and, deliver customer success and fast time to value and growth all around.
Yeah. Okay, let's pivot slightly to the partner world, right? And one of the big trends that we are seeing in the market right now, and Kelly did a report on this. There is a movement. I don't want to call it a movement because I think it implies a lot of things, right? But there is a need in companies where they need to bring the different partner teams together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they can all work synergistically. And before your role, was the structure already there that the teams were operating in in unison, or was it after your role that they were brought together?
It was actually created before my role. My predecessor, who's also my boss, created this design. But if you watch Microsoft, we've explored many different kinds of design over the years, and I think what we have right now makes a ton of sense based upon what we expect from partners and what the company expects us to do with our partners and on behalf of customers. But it's interesting because every year we sort of talk about, well, what are the centers of gravity? What are the centers of influence? What are the centers of decision making? And is there something we should be looking at in our design?
Yeah, I really like the center of gravity and the center of influence framework, because it then just makes the decision very easy. And depending on where the market's going and what customers are feeling and how buyers are buying, you just organize that way.
And how are you thinking about, as the sort of platform for a lot of these relationships, facilitating the interactions between other partners? Right? I think this is something that large ecosystems are really innovating on today. So would love to hear how you're thinking about it, because I don't think there's necessarily an established playbook, and obviously it's dependent on different partner types, but you are uniquely positioned to sort of make those multi-partner deals where there's 3, 4, 5 partners, not have every person in a side conversation and then coming back together and playing telephone. Is that something you guys are thinking about?
Oh yeah, gosh, I don't think there's a week that goes by that we don't talk about this. In fact, we were in a meeting yesterday just talking about this exact topic, because I can't think of a recent customer deal where there was only one partner or only one partner type. And so, the digital transformation is so meaty and substantial and complex for customers. It requires so many different kinds of expertise. It could start with one of our advisory partners guiding the C-suite or board of directors about why they should be thinking about generative AI, as an example. And then, you certainly bring in systems integrators and ISVs and channel partners, and you deliver everything all the way through the line. And so, we have a variety of ways that we see that showing up today. Many of Microsoft's partners also have partner ecosystems, and we love to do those connections. But, it's a very commonly asked question to me. Hey, Nicole, can you tell me an ISV that could help me with this? Or can you show me the best systems integrator that could deliver this function in this geography, in this industry? And there are also some things we're exploring with our own technology that will make that, more systemic and more seamless for our partners.
Yeah, how bullish are you on sort of data, the combination of quality data and AI to kind of solve some of this problem, in the sense that, to your point, a system integrator comes, they have a particular customer profile that you have data on, and you say, hey, these are the apps, the ISVs that we've seen be most successful in this package. Do you feel bullish looking to the future? 3 years from now, we might have the capabilities to facilitate a lot of that through technology?
Oh, we better have it in fewer than 3. But yeah,
Microsoft will have it in fewer than 3. The rest of us in the market will have to wait.
I was just about to say, it's almost like we already have it, so.
Yeah, I feel really optimistic about this concept. And we've got a lot of the wiring in place today. We moved from the Microsoft Partner Network, MPN, which was our partner program that was in market for 20 years, which is pretty amazing. And we evolved to the Microsoft Cloud Partner Program in October of 2022. And then in July, we introduced the next generation of that, which is the Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program. And wired throughout the program is that intellect and insight about what partners do, what markets they're in, what designations, specializations, certifications they have. So we look at that really thoughtfully. And then I think the next extension of that is to say, hey, these are some logical connections to make, between partner types in a geography, in an industry to get the job done for a customer.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And I know I haven't been on your marketplace for a few months, so it might have been updated since. But I will say one of the things I liked about it, but I feel like it's kind of the early example of this, where this can go, is when you're looking at apps, right? Say you go to the automotive apps. I think this is the App Source marketplace. It then says, hey, here's some automotive solutions partners or consultants, right? And it is very broad. There's a lot listed. It's almost just like the category itself. But I feel like next evolution of that, right, is it's going to give you much more tailored and specific when you go to click on particular app and it says, hey, this would be the perfect person to help you implement, which is great, right?
Yeah, it's as though you're sitting in my marketplace meetings with me. Yeah, there's so much capability that we can wire into our platform, and then the added genius and benefit of co-pilots and generative AI just make that a more simple, easy, consumable experience for partners and for customers. And so absolutely, that's on our radar.
I want to pivot a little bit away. So we talked a little about the org chart and I think the data and the automation, which that's a lot more to dig into there. But what do you feel about the sort of community component, right? So I think you were, especially as a chief partner officer, because I feel like the chief partner officer is different than, say, the chief marketing officer, right? Like all the customers of Microsoft are not looking to the CMO of Microsoft to be like the face of the company for them. But I feel like partners do look to the chief partner officer as sort of their person, so to speak. And I think there's that human element, right? Now, we can make all the business connections of the world, but at the end of the day, there's that layer of trust, because in partnerships, something will always go wrong and you need that layer of trust. So what are your thoughts on sort of community, scaled engagement, and sort of being the face of that as the chief partner officer?
Well, first of all, like it's an awesome privilege and responsibility to be seen that way, and I hope I live up to that every single day, and I know my team does as well. It's really really important. Creating a sense of community and connection is critical. We aren't robots. We aren't just a machine. Like at the end of the day, things get done because of humans. And so that means that humans have to be motivated, inspired, incented, skilled. It really comes down to, what are all the things that we can do together to make magic happen and to make partners want to partner with Microsoft. Like, I don't take any of that for granted. And so we do a lot of work on a couple of different things. First, just around how we think about things beyond the business. We all have a really big number to deliver. And at Microsoft, we have this just really exciting and massive portfolio that touches every customer segment, every one of our 6 commercial solution areas, and every geography. But if you only live in the numbers and the KPIs and, what did you do for me lately? I think you're missing so much of the equation. And just like all of us care about the culture in the place that we work, I really care about the culture and the work climate with our partners. And so we spend time talking about the mission. We spend time talking about purpose and how we can all find purpose in our work. And, for me, one of my personal passions and commitments is around diversity and inclusion. And so because I get the microphone, I get to talk to partners about what I think that means for us and our ecosystem, and where I see opportunity for us to do even more on behalf of the world.
On that note, happy International Women's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
So I guess we're going to be taking a lot of pivots, as you can tell in this conversation, or if you haven't already, that's what we're doing. But as you speak with your peers, right? Because there's not like 17,000 CR, just like there's 17,000 CROs. At least by our numbers, there's about 847 chief partner officers today, and I believe only 87 of them are in B2B.
Wow.
And so so we have a long way to go, right? But
Yeah.
also there's a role called the chief business officer that also has some platform capabilities that they own, and so there's 4,200 of them. So if we added ours and their, let's call it, populations together, just like all partner people do, collaborate, there's about 5,000 of them, right? But in at your level, I believe there's like 12 or maybe 13 or 15 folks that are chief partner officers. Uh, do you guys have like a WhatsApp group going or a team channel going or something like that?
It's a really good idea. We don't, but we probably should.
Nicole can't talk about that group, Asher.
Okay, got it. Okay.
That's part of being in the group. It's top
Okay.
secret.
It's like, I was looking for cpomafia.com and I know and we don't have it.
No, but I love the concept. And, we do all talk to each other and we all learn from one another. And it's, I love the name of your podcast, Unlearn, but there's a lot to learn. And, we're all kind of on this journey. And particularly in tech, things move so fast. If you think you know everything and you have it nailed, I mean, you're going to fail. You're just wrong. And so it's like, how do you seek input? How do you get wisdom from, mistakes others have made? And so, there's a good group of us that talk frequently and just like, hey, can I pick your brain on this? Or how do you think about this? And having this challenge, how did you solve that challenge? It's great, necessary.
And is everybody at, because there's only like half a dozen or maybe a dozen companies that operate at your level, right? And a lot of the CPOs have to emerge now to that, right? And so do you find yourself giving more advice than getting advice?
I think it depends on the topic. There's some things that Microsoft has a lot of history in. Like, Microsoft was founded as a partner-led company.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We've got decades of experience on how we think about a partner ecosystem and how you sort of wire that DNA across the company. Not all companies were founded that way. And so a lot of it depends on, what's a company's strategy, how do they go to market, things like that. But so I get a lot of questions on that. I get a lot of questions on, how we think about the levers in our program. But I certainly have many, many things to learn from colleagues and peers and stakeholders around the industry. So it's a two-way street.
Super.
Is there something you see a lot of organizations getting wrong? Don't have to name any names, but is there some common misstep that you feel like is pretty pervasive in the industry?
Well, I think anybody that thinks that they can sit still and rest on their laurels and like, oh yeah, nailed that. Wow, that is just wrong. And the partner ecosystem, regardless of a company's size or maturity around their partner ecosystem, it's constantly evolving. And as you rightly said, Kelly, like, sometimes things are going to be hard. And, it's like, how do you sort of work through those things and make sure that everything starts with trust, as you rightly said earlier, because having that common trust is going to help us weather hard things. And I always think that the mark of a person's character or the company's character is how they get through some of the harder things. I think it's easy to be great when things are great. And so I think like the concept of growth mindset is something that really resonates for me personally. And I think it's highly applicable in the partner business. Like, always stay curious, always assume that your competitors are creeping up on you and that, it's your job to earn that trust every single day.
Do you feel like Microsoft does have the reputation, right, of being partner first, partner led growth for a long time? Even so, do you still feel like it's a key part of your job to continue to tell the partner story internally? Because a lot of organizations struggle with that. Is there a point that an organization's so partner first that you no longer have to have that be like a key leg of your job, which is to constantly be evangelizing partners in their role? Or do you feel like that's just something that continues on as the story keeps needing to be told, and it's the chief partners officer to make sure that story stays top of mind?
It's very top of mind for me. And I think my advice to any partner leader would be don't stop telling that story, because it's too easy for things to slip, or maybe like you don't want to take anything for granted, maybe is a better way for me to say it. But I spend a good amount of my energy in my internal meetings with colleagues at all levels across the company, telling stories about the great things that our partners can do on behalf of Microsoft, and the unique role that they play. We've spent a lot of time thinking about how we use partners to make sure that we're leveraging the partner ecosystem to do things that are different from what our full-time employees can do. It's not beneficial to anybody if you have a partner that's doing the exact same thing in a customer that the account executive is doing on that customer. What you really want is you want the magic to happen when they have complementary skills, complementary capabilities. Our partners can go do great differentiated things for that customer. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time, is thinking about how do I enable the partners to do that? How do I incent the partners to do that? How do I resource the team to do that? Things like that.
Okay, this is actually a really good point, because and we should double click on this one, because this is, I would say, I don't want to use the word interesting, but maybe innovative would be thinking, because we, at least the partner leaders that we speak with a lot, are told to go focus on sales, which is, again, we should totally all do that, but we don't tell them that they need to spend a lot of time complementing the company's direct
Mm-hmm.
resources.
Yep.
And that's actually a really good point, because to do that, you have to actually learn what the company is already doing. And right. And in larger
And you have to
organizations,
stay close to those
you have to stay
functions,
close
right?
to it.
So
Correct.
as it evolves, it continues to evolve in tandem. I mean,
Correct.
that's the
Correct.
constant touring part.
Yeah. And as I'm thinking about it, as the company grows, I mean, a number of times the question gets asked to me, like, hey, why does this CPO role even exist, right? And I always say, look, there's a audience called customers, there's an audience called prospects, there are stakeholders called investors, analysts, but there is a stakeholder called partners, and
Yeah.
there is an enterprise level responsibility to share with them what's happening inside the company, what the plans are, and bring them along the journey, because you just don't have enough resources to innovate fast enough anymore, especially in this capital efficient growth environment. But the point you just made, which was the leader needs to enable their teams to actually think about differentiation and complementing the company. It's almost like there's a direct business and there's an augmented business, right? And then that way the friction drops. Like if you enforce that, and then you're just saying we're reaching deeper into accounts in a differentiated way, and that should actually decrease friction.
Totally. Beautifully said. There are so many reasons why this is important. If we don't do a good job of explaining the unique role that a partner can play, it would be very understandable for a full-time employee to be like, I got this, I can do this, this is my job. Why would I bring in some other company that Microsoft has to pay to do it when I could do it myself? And so, like, for me, it starts at this really fundamental level of helping people across all parts of the company understand what partners do to complement, add value, and differentiate what Microsoft does. I can see it through the lens of the seller. I can also see it through our engineering. Microsoft is a platform company. We build phenomenal products that are, super proud of in the market. And what we want is we want partners to build on top of those things, add their own IP, solution, services, capability, and then be able to differentiate with the combination of those two things. And so I see like so many examples of what you're saying. And maybe just to put a pragmatic point on it, I have a financial responsibility to the company to make sure that we're
100%.
spending our
Totally.
money responsibly.
Yeah.
And so, like, why would I double spend?
Yeah.
And so it's really, really important on so many dimensions that we get this right, because then we can unlock real value in the market.
Yeah. And to double click on that point a little bit further, is the collaborators, the best collaborators in the world, as we call them, or at least that's what they should be doing, right? Like, it's like you're collaborating to the other side, right? Like, you need to collaborate towards your side, which is, I'm a partner leader and I need to drive my company's objectives. And yes, we will meet in the middle, but we're not meeting in your middle. We are also meeting in my middle, and it's like I've seen this happen so many times. And unfortunately, like, this is the school of hard knocks. There is no playbook or guide for this. And then you go into a place which becomes a very dark zone for both companies, because it's hard to then yank the roadmap, right? Uh, but then if we create the capability in our teams to be very, very rigorous about the knowing what your corporate objectives are and
Mhm.
being close to them, and then learning about the other company's corporate objectives and tying there, that skill set, I believe, needs to be developed and amplified a lot.
Oh my gosh, that is so well said. Every single one of our partners are companies unto themselves. They have leadership teams, board of directors, shareholders, customers, and they have their own strategies.
Yeah.
And they will never 100% match the Microsoft strategy. And so I think, what you just said, Asher, is a great explanation of why companies need partner leaders, because you need somebody that is going to spend their waking hours thinking about how you make those two things work in concert, and you acknowledge places where you're going to compete with one another. And then you find the sort of magical places where you can really bet very well together and do great things for the market, for society, for customers. Like, there's so much goodness that can happen when we get this right.
Yeah, one of the ways I've explained this, and this conversation is actually confirming that. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to have you. Is the CPO role is going to get compared to the CMO role, the CCO role, like all these other roles, right? And having been a CRO before, I know how tough of a job it is to prioritize and optimize revenue. I mean, that's like an internal job. It's not an external, like, I'm going to go meet with the CROs of other companies. Like, that's not the role, right?
Mm.
And to me, the CPO, like the CMO role, is all about optimizing markets and prioritizing them. And the CPO role is all about prioritizing and optimizing relationships. And that's a very serious uh, introspective role. And yes, like, I agree. As much as I want the CPO role to be this like thing where you're like on the faces of of magazines and stuff like that, I think it's actually the importance is like really, it's really important to stay very focused on the company's plan and
Yeah,
saying, here are the resources I need to make these partners wildly successful.
absolutely. And all of those other roles that you just talked about, we're all stakeholders for one another.
Totally.
We
100%. Yes.
participate in each other's success, and
Yes.
hopefully we all see the opportunity the same way to deliver on the company's mission. And then the way
Yeah.
that I deliver on the company's mission, and my team does, is through partners.
Yeah.
But like, this, it comes back to what Kelly asked earlier about, stakeholders and dotted line. Like, you all have to start with the same big vision
Yes.
together, and then everybody has to make sure that they're delivering on it through their lane, their lenses, their resources, etc.
And
Yeah,
to
I
me,
just want to acknowledge how complex it is, right? Because I think what Asher said and what you said before that, Nicole, pulling those things together, corporate objectives of your company, corporate objectives of the partner company need to come together. But the reality is, in large companies, it's not a monolith of a corporate objective, right? You have stakeholders within those with their own, that's the reality at any organization.
Yeah.
So the partner leader may have their own vision for what the company's overarching objectives is, but the reality is they have to find that complementary framework, which I love, by the way, and I feel like that's actually really good executive messaging internally. But they have to find that simultaneously match up with the partner objectives and then roll that out at scale. Like it's incredibly complex. Like I think
That's
that's what makes the
But
job so
also,
interesting, but also so challenging.
yeah, but also business leaders today have to do that anyways because they have
yeah.
to think of like the social causes, the economic causes, like all these things they have to do it, right? And I say this, I'm a little let's call it fired up about this one because like I was speaking with these amazing like technology partnership managers at Okta this week, and I was just telling them about the what we're learning with the community and stuff, and then halfway through the prezo, like I just saw a little bit confusion in the room, and I said, "What's the problem?" Right? And the conversation became about like they were like, well, we don't know if we actually fit in this team or not, and and they roll up through corp dev, right? And so I said, well, what is the real problem, right? Like behind the problem, right? And then they're like, well, I don't know if the company understands our value. And so I said, well, but how are you speaking to them? And then they're like, well, it's this partnership and that and this and that, and I'm like, look, you're all business leaders. You
Yeah.
have to speak in the language of business. And then when you become senior, the more senior you become, all the leaders care about business goals. And when you all hopefully become chief partner officers at some day, you have to think like enterprise leaders, right? And you could see that
Yeah.
just a little bit of encouragement cleared the fog in their minds. And then by the time we finished the session, they were like, okay, you know what, we have, because you had a person in the room that manages you all, there was a person in the room that manages Apple, there's a person in the room that manages all these amazing relationships. And so I asked them like, hey, what's the biggest problem that your execs care about right now? And they're like, growth. And I'm like, so between all of you here, you have 21 of the largest companies in the world. And so if you just think about how to deliver the growth problem here and speak to your executives in business language, they're going to listen to you and appreciate you a lot. And that was it, basically. And so the folks that are listening to this podcast, like this at least my encouragement stemming from Nicole, what you're saying is you have to think about differentiation. You have to think about how your partners complement what your direct teams are already doing, and speak like business leaders. And then you won't have to worry about this, like, why do I exist or what's my value problem. You'll have to worry about how fast can I get resources to deliver the customer's problems, and then we will all be happy.
I love the coaching you gave. That's awesome. And I completely agree. I do think it's about the mindset you have. And, it's such great advice for all of us in any role to think about, well, what is the problem that our leaders are trying to solve? And, what is the most important thing to them? And how can we orient our own roles and work around that to deliver on the big strategy for the company?
So I, let's move to some of the controversial parts of this convo a little bit here. May- Maybe So as we were prepping, and normally, I mean, for our audience, our audience knows that we don't prep, but like because Nicole does not know both Kelly and I, we figured we do a little bit of prep, and we did discuss a little bit about just the frontline partner manager role and the future of that role, right? Well,
Yeah.
would love to hear about how leaders like your at your level are thinking about the future of that role.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, and I said this earlier, our organization is a sales organization. And so it's really, really important for me that our team understands that is core to the work that we do and the approach that they bring to partners. I think there's there's a little bit of heritage or baggage in partner organizations around this notion of an alliance manager. And there are some important compliance and legal reasons why some people call the role that. So I don't mean to demean that in any way. But, in Microsoft anyway, the heritage around that role was more like, oh, okay, I'm here to make sure that our partners are happy, and I'm here to make sure that that I'm giving them a good program and I'm paying them. And those are important things to do, but that's not the core of the job. The core of the job is to help partners take bets on Microsoft platform, on Microsoft technology and innovation, build differentiated services, solutions, capability, delivery on top of that, and then go do amazing, innovative things for customers in their digital transformation journey. That takes a seller mindset. The second thing is like the wave of technology innovation that we're all living through, and we'll tell generations to come. We'll talk about what's happening in tech right now. Requires us all to become more technical, and so it's very top of mind for me. Just as I think a lot about how to skill our partner ecosystem, I think a lot about how to skill my team to make sure that they can speak with confidence and credibility about all of the incredible innovation the company is pumping out right
Yeah. I totally agree. And just to finish this topic, it's like I was on a call with a bunch of CMOs right before this call, and they're like, "What are the two don'ts and one do that you want to tell us about partnerships, right?" And I basically said, well, you know what? I'll simplify the answer. You've got to look for repeatability and rigor. And if neither of those two exist, just drop the whole thing. If there's any ounce of vagueness, and you could see there's like a sigh of relief on their faces, right? And they're like, we have had so many of these proposals come up, and they're like, and so I always follow this framework, which is like you need to research and develop the partner totally. And I don't use the word relationship at all because to me it's just a fuzzy thing, right? You do research, go develop them, shoot a straight line to revenue, look for repeatability, go build rigor, and then prepare them for build some resilience and prepare them for a day when things are going to go bad. If you don't do those two things, you're a very focused organization, and the leader of those teams is going to be respected like a business leader because there's no vagueness in any of this stuff. There's all very, very factual, measurable things.
On that
now.
note, I can you speak, Nicole, to KPIs for frontline partner managers, because I think this is something that organizations really struggle with, right? And it gets probably worse when you get over to what we would call strategic alliances, because then it becomes even more bespoke. And what's a reasonable expectation when you have these like mega partners? But even the typical like frontline partner manager, can you
Yeah.
kind of speak to how you think about how they can have rigor around the KPIs that we can flag at scale? Who's actually killing it? Who
Yeah.
maybe just inherited an awesome partner? Like how we kind of put some rigor around that.
Totally. And, just as one example of this, all of the PDMs, partner development managers in our org are on incentive comp. I'm frankly on a highly leveraged incentive compensation program for this exact reason. We ask them to do a lot. And in order to make sure that people have the right motivation to do that, they have to see it show up in their incentives and in the priorities that we cascade to, throughout the team. But it does come back to something that Asher said, like we have to be able to measure this, and then we have to always monitor it. So I'm a big fan of measure and monitor, because if you tell somebody that these things are important, and by the way, in Microsoft, we have 6 solution areas times 3 segments times, X number of areas around the world, like the mega map gets big pretty quick. And so if you tell somebody everything is important, then nothing is important. And so we actually look at this through the lens of what do we expect from a partner manager of any specific partner type. So the partner development manager for an ISV is measured differently than the partner development manager for a GSI, for a telco, for a hoster, et cetera. And then we measure across, for us, the work on the commercial solution areas that ladder up to the strategy. It's a pretty PhD level piece of work that we do every year as we set the compensation, but it really, really matters. Like, that's how we motivate our people. It's one of the most important pieces of work we do every year.
And are those incentives usually complex? Like if you look at, say, your ISV managers, is it incentivized across a number of different criteria? Say something recognizing the value for, say, driving our retentions on the customer side, if those things are installed against one of your products, but also new revenue, influencing deals. Like, is it multifaceted?
It is multifaceted. And look, every year we strive to simplify. We want to make it so deeply obvious to people that, okay, this is the company strategy. These are my core priorities, and this is how it shows up in my pay. And there's always a combination of things that are in incentive comp, and then things that people can earn a bonus for because of other things that we expect from them. But yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into that for sure.
All right, Nicole, we could talk to you forever if you allow us to. But we also want to be extremely respectful of your time. We would love to have you back on the show like a few months down the road. But as we wrap up, are there things that you would want to share? Or is there anything that you would want to share, knowing that our audience is going to listen to this is very, very partner focused? And then if there's any encouragement that you would give to the partnership leaders that are fighting the good fight, like working really hard, elevating themselves, their teams, and their partners?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. This was so fun. I think there's a few things. I think there has never been a better time in the industry, in our history, to be in the partner business. It is truly the way for any company to get scale, to get reach, to get differentiation. And so it's so exciting. It's really energizing. There's obviously a lot of really amazing tech that we can deliver through that. So that part's really motivating as well. And I think it's so important for all of us to be the voice of our partners for our companies. And we have a really important role to play, regardless of the company's maturity on the partner business or their stance on the partner business. Like, helping colleagues and leaders understand what a partner or partners could do for achievement of growth, achievement of the company's strategy, delivery of the company's mission. It's very clarifying for people and quite motivating for our employees that spend every waking hour, working with partners. And so I just I'm so motivated by what we all get to do. And I love that you guys have this very targeted focus on, unlocking capability within anybody that works on the partner business and partner leader. So thank you for doing this work.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We're very, very proud of you. Thank you for inspiring us to really take our careers to the next level. And we'll have you back on the show.
I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening to Unlearn. Subscribe wherever you listen and visit unlearnpodcast.com for the transcripts.